Hello and welcome back to the one-shot show where GMs go to level up. Paddy, I am stood outside your bedroom window with a boombox. We're in a John Hughes joint.
Beautiful.
And I'm saying, Paddy, it's me, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Please take me back.
It's so rare that I watch one of those movies and I want the person and I want them to take them back. But in this moment, this is what we're talking about. We're going like, what could I raised this? I can't remember when it was. What topic was it?
A few eps back.
A few eps back, I was kind of like, Matt, what could D&D do to win you back? And yeah, we made it a topic because I think it's so pertinent right now because I feel I'm not quite as broken up with it as you are. I feel like I haven't had the big separation. It hasn't made the huge misstep yet, or I haven't caught it in a compromising position and I misunderstand what's going on and I step away.
Come home to find 5th edition in bed with your best friend.
And I feel like it's a conversation that the community has been on the cusp of probably since the OGL debacle.
That seemed to be one of the bigger moments of Exodus.
Yeah.
I want to preface this, and I've mentioned this once or twice when 5th edition has come up in some of our more recent episodes, especially in the context of, shall we say, impassioned rants of mine. Look, 5th edition isn't dying. Dungeons & Dragons isn't dying. It's not about to vanish. This isn't the moment. That moment's never going to happen. I would be very shocked if it does in my lifetime. I'm not going to count it out, but it's not like this isn't, Armageddon. The sky's not falling. What this is right now that we're experiencing is a cycle that the hobby has experienced many times over its life, wherein an edition of Dungeons & Dragons specifically is decent, popular, it grows the hobby, and then that audience starts to look elsewhere. They feel like they've had their time with Dungeons & Dragons and they move onward. They go elsewhere. Maybe a new edition comes out and they give it another go. They end up really liking it, or they don't. Who knows, right? But it's very normal. This has always happened. Now, sometimes there are things that push a slightly bigger exodus. You can sort of feel that moment of audience maturity, of maturation. 3.5 to 4th edition was one of the big swings of this, where it drove a lot of people out to other systems. But also those people had already done a whole bunch of 3.5. They were ready for something new anyway. It just ended up not being 4th edition. Nothing wrong with that. 5th edition has grown the hobby fantastically. So many new people. And if you started playing back in 2014 when it first came out, by now, it's been 12 years. That's a really long time for any one system. I reckon most people would have already kind of moved on elsewhere. And that's fine. Dungeons & Dragons still represents... they're still 10 times the size of the next largest product on the market, which is Pathfinder. Like the entire suite of Paizo Pathfinder products is 1/10 the size of the market as Dungeons & Dragons et al. That's the scale we're talking about here. But this is a good thing. This is a good thing for the Paizos of the world. Yes. Because those people who are sick of 5th edition or just want to try something new, they move onward. Now, it might be that something particular happens and they go, fuck Hasbro, fuck Wizards of the Coast, I hate everything about virtual tabletops. I don't know. Whatever bone you've got to pick, whatever axe you got to grind, Lord knows I have plenty of my own. And that's the moment where they go, I'm moving on. But they're already ready to move on. No one has ever gone, I'm going to stop playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition because, there was some individual scandal. They were already a bit over it, is my opinion. And I think therein lies the complicated heart of this topic. What would Dungeons & Dragons have to do to win me back? It might have to not be Dungeons & Dragons, right? I can imagine a theoretical 6th edition. I can imagine some things that I would want to have in it, and I want to talk about those things. But as I do so, you might realize that what I'm talking about is stuff in other systems. And actually, as is the classic thing, I might just be happier going and playing those. You don't have to get back with your ex. But let's get specific. What are some things, and I guess I'll start this off with you then. You haven't quite, the divorce isn't finalized.
No.
You're separated, but you're living together.
Yeah.
What don't you like about 5th edition that you would like absolutely must see rectified in 6th edition for you to be excited about it rather than feel yourself drifting further away?
Yeah, I don't know. One of the big things that's jumped out to me since, for example, let's like the major pivot from 5e to 5.5e is that I feel like there was this huge emphasis when I was first joining the hobby where I could connect directly. It felt like, probably not the case, but it felt like I could connect with the people who were designing the hobby. And I'm thinking specifically of like Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford there. I felt like they were so forward-facing in their conversation with the community. And like this is in videos, this is in actual plays, this is online. It felt like there was an accessibility directly to the people who were making the thing that now it feels more like it feels more like Hasbro Wizard of the Coast Faceless Corporation because Jeremy and Chris have stepped away. There's no face now that I can connect with anymore. And I felt that was so important in my early days of connecting with the hobby as somebody who was like, I want to run, but I also want to know what I'm getting into in a way that feels like, I don't know, accessible and interesting to me. And also as an artist to go like, who are the artists who are designing what's under the hood? And I don't know that anymore.
Oh, and it's something that came out of the wake of 4th edition, if you will, where they sort of looked at needing to revitalize things for 5th edition, going, what might bring some people back into the fold. They weren't going, hey, let's make this incredible edition that's going to grow our audience, leaps and bounds beyond what it's ever been in the past, which is what 5th edition eventually became. They were just going, how do we get this right? What do people want? And I think that's where that visibility comes from. Is step one of that is like, they also wanted it to be good. They wanted D&D to win them back as well as players.
And you could feel that in the discourse, and you could feel it with the passion and the specificity with which they spoke about the work that they were developing.
Whereas I now a little bit feel like there's a crop of designers that are moving into the space, and this is not to discredit them. I think this is a very normal thing to feel, that look at it and go, man, that'd be the dream, designing for 5th edition, or getting to design Dungeons & Dragons.
Which is probably part of the massive bubble that it created over the past decade. It's like, I aspire now to this office.
It's like people, the difference between people who go, man, I want to make a really cool video game, and people who go, I want to work at Blizzard. Right? Now, there may have been a point in time where those things were synonymous, but the reasoning is slightly different there. They weren't designers going, man, I can't wait to design Dungeons and Dragons. There were people who loved the hobby who were like, what's the thing that we would love to have exist? And we had the privilege of getting to do that under the umbrella of the D&D IP. And then also having to look at that and go, what do D&D fans expect? What did they want? Matt Colville, my God, we keep talking about this guy.
He's
mentioned this in the past. Dungeons & Dragons is weird. It's really weird as a system because it is required to include all of these odd legacy beats. Just so that
there's a lot of burden behind it.
Yeah, just so that the old hats, and the grognards and, the Gen Xers still feel like it's theirs, right? Like there are some things that they're just never going to be able to get rid of, even if they are millstones. And that's fine. That's just the quirk and foible of it. I'm okay with that, right? Daggerheart's kind of done away with how we traditionally think of initiative in the D&D context. D&D can never do that. I genuinely think if it ever tried to, people would revolt.
I think that Daggerheart and MCDM have also done a great job of forefronting the designer and having those conversations out in the open. Like this week, it was today. Today they released a video of Rowan and Spencer talking about the new the new Daggerheart book, and I was like, I know who you are. I'm interested in what you have to say about the design of it, and I can also feel that same genuine lean into what they're doing that I felt the first times that I was engaging with Jeremy and with Chris, and so I was like, there's something there as well. And Matt's doing it as well. What's the name of? He's designing crows at the moment. What's his name? His other co-lead designer. I'm going to look it up.
Couldn't tell you.
He's so cool.
While you do that, I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds of what I mentioned before, which is that I don't know that theoretical 6th edition will win me back. Well, look, I'm going to... When the announcement eventually comes, when the teasers start rolling out, I will watch it with fervent interest. I will probably give it a go. I'll probably try it out. I would absolutely love to do that. Would it make me switch away from what I'm currently doing? Well, I don't know, because what I've found is a system that just really handily supports most of the things that I want badly in an RPG. I think if I started describing the nuts and bolts of the key details, the key things I would want 6th edition to have, I would start describing something close enough to Pathfinder 2nd edition that I should just be playing Pathfinder 2nd edition. And I will. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I've said in the past, at this current moment in time, Pathfinder 2nd Ed isn't even the system that I am like the most excited about. I play it, it's my daily driver. I love it for a lot of reasons. It's the robust 9-to-5er for my regular game. The systems that are exciting me right now are like Daggerheart, Shadow Dark. I'm playing in a Fallout game that I'm really enjoying. There's a whole suite of other systems that I'm really, really loving right now. But for like, my bread and butter, my Toyota Aqua, I am happy with Pathfinder 2nd edition. And if 6th edition tried to be Pathfinder 2nd edition, I'd go, this already exists. I don't need it. Thank you for the attempt. I am not the person that 6th edition should be trying to win over. There are, I think, people that don't want to move away from 5th edition, even though they maybe should. I think that's who 6th edition needs to appeal to, but I actually think it'll probably fail in that, and I think that's just a little bit inevitable, because if you imagine right now the person who has only ever played 5th edition, maybe they played it since 2014, maybe it's been more recent, and they're not really interested in switching, maybe they're not really aware that they can, or they think that they won't enjoy it, whatever it happens to be. I think that person won't leave 5th edition until 6th edition, at which point then they will leave.
Interesting.
That presents a really difficult position for the eventual designers of 6th edition.
This is the thing, because I was wondering about, this thing, I was just wondering as you were speaking, maybe it needs to, maybe we need to, fall back into obscurity again.
Yeah.
In order for it to, rise into its different form.
Because, it's easy for me to sit here and go, well, I'd love for them to maybe make some major change-ups, challenge the form a little bit. But look, last time they tried to do that, it was 4th edition, and unfortunately, it dealt great damage to the IP. Not even for a good reason. 4th edition is a brilliant system. It's so much fun. It's really, really cool. People were just bubble-blowing bitch babies because it wasn't 3.5.
Yeah.
It wasn't this thing that they'd spent ages with and had all these books with. It felt too different. And that's why I say 5th edition had the unenviable task of also trying to appeal to those, salty little bitch boy grognards who unfortunately still exist in the hobby. There's no getting around it. And they are pretty big market, to be perfectly honest.
But I reckon, don't you think the core fan of D&D 5e now is further away from that?
No. Genuinely. I think it's because when I say that, you're probably picturing the comic book guy from The Simpsons. I'm actually neckbeard type. The guy today doesn't look like that. They're not, they're not red letter media still talking about Star Wars all these years later. But they are irrationally attached to something about 5th edition, to a point of almost parasocial symbiosis, where I think they would be happier not playing 5th edition. But they can't get themselves away from it because they can't conceive of a world without it, and until that world is thrust upon them with the proper. And I think this is the thing, that the 5.5 thing, the 2024, that felt like a very obvious one in, one out, trying to ride the middle ground of that and not scare that person away, because you don't want to do anything that scares away your audience. I think you're right. It just needs to fall dormant for a little bit. It needs to fall quieter for a bit. I think there needs to be this acceptance that 6th edition, whenever it happens, is probably going to kill a lot of the 5e crowd. They'll start going elsewhere. I think a bunch will go to Daggerheart, which by then will probably be deep into its maturity. Some might go to Pathfinder 2nd Ed. Don't know so much if that's the mood of the general audience. I think a lot of the people that would have switched to Pathfinder already have.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think that actually presents an opportunity because it means they could maybe take a slightly finer scalpel to those weird tumescent legacy things that they're required to keep including. I don't think they should cut all of them off, but I think they could really take their time in the operating theatre and go, okay, it's time to excise the way that modifiers work.
Yeah, I would long for radical change.
Yeah.
Like I would go. I wonder how I would feel at that 3.5 to 4th edition transformation, because we're in 5.5 and we'll go into a 6th transformation. Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see what my response to that will be, because at this point I go like, I would like something that feels very different, please and thank you.
Yeah.
Like I would love to, and also I think that's the thing. I would love to feel designers at work creating something.
Yes.
Because they are the leaders in the space.
I want to feel the touch and the intentionality, and I want it to be from somebody who cares so much about Dungeons and Dragons. Somebody who, as we were talking about before in the lead up to 5th edition, who, the designers that Wizards of the Coast had in-house that were leading the project for 5th edition, I want it to be designers who feel that whatever steps in their career have brought them here, they now have the privilege to create something incredible with the Dungeons and Dragons IP, something that so few are so lucky to be able to do.
Yeah, I 100%. I think that's really at the core of the thing. I feel like there is a tipping point that is turned where it feels like the thing isn't being handled like it's special anymore. It feels like it's being handled because it's profitable, or something along those lines. And it's what's I'm edging further and further out of the relationship, which I don't want to be doing. I want to stay interested, but just what is it that will keep me?
But I suppose it's the grown up ending of this coming of age film. You do not come to the window. My tape runs out. I put my boombox away and I go home. We bump into one another at a cafe several years down the line.
Like, yeah, we're on the same page.
You're married. I'm married to different people. And we can look in one another's eyes and feel peace at the lives well lived, knowing that our paths will never cross in that way again. Thank you for tuning into the One Shot Show. We'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed that episode of the One Shot Show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/One Shot Show. You'll see all of the offerings available. You can commission custom episodes. You can get video versions of our regular weekly episodes. You can get monthly bonus episodes where we deep dive into particular topics. You can submit questions for our regular Q&A format. And we have a new offering that we're going to be launching this month, where at the end of each month, we will do a live Q&A session in our Discord server talking about the episodes from the most recent month. Also, for the next 3 months, anyone who backs us on Patreon will get 5 complimentary invites to our Discord server as we grow that community further. Please check it out and please support the show.